welcome to this Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming to you live as we do this. Oh, it's Woman Wednesday. It's not Thirsty Thursday, so Frank's going to check me on that. It's Woman Wednesday. I'm looking at the stock market, so I'm a little thrown off this morning. We're in the Question Tequila studios, and there is an all-out assault today on the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow, as we speak, down 566 points. Frank pointed out yesterday that I often say namaste, stay calm. I would be alert right now. Don't just brush it off. 600 points down in a day is a lot to be down. It is 2%. 2% is technically a correction in such a short term. It's very volatile in the summer. So keep an eye on your portfolio. Your long-term investment should be fine. But if you're playing with things that are short-term, stay very wary, stay very nimble. And if you get a bad feeling, get the cash as quick as you can. And Bitcoin is also down today, about 500 points, but holding at 10,400. And we have a blockbuster of a Woman Wednesday show for you today. It's going to be 2 hours of amazingness, and amazingness it is. Sitting right next to me, Frank Morano, managing editor of Liquid Lunch, joins me today on Thirsty Thursday.
Hello, John, on Women Wednesday.
Women Wednesday.
Happy Women Wednesday to you and to all the women out there. And John alluded to the tumult and the turmoil in the stock market, and directly or indirectly, that is one of the subjects I'll be speaking frankly about. I am a Donald Trump fan. I was happy to vote for him. He was the first winning presidential candidate I ever voted for. And I was proud to vote for him for a whole bunch of reasons, where he was on immigration, where he was on ending these foreign wars, where he was on trade. But one of the main issues that attracted me to Donald Trump as a personality and as a presidential candidate was his position on China. And I have been thrilled since he's been in office that he's the one president in my lifetime that doesn't want to let China continue to rip off America. And when he instituted those tariffs, I was gung-ho saying, go, Mr. President, go, Mr. President. Now, all you have to do over the course of the last 20, 30, 40 years is look at how China has treated the United States, the world, and their own people to realize that China is a geopolitical threat, par excellence. China, 5 years ago, hacked into the personnel files of 22 million people applying for jobs with the federal government. China steals through cyber theft and hacking all of our intellectual property, at least a good deal of it. China floods the marketplace with their own cheap goods, makes it very difficult for American companies to compete. China has 1 million Uyghurs, Chinese Muslims, in concentration camps right now, and yet we're supposed to sit there and just take it. That was the Clinton policy, that was the Bush policy, that was the Obama policy, and yet Donald Trump tried to turn a new page. He said, wait a minute. We're not going to have American factories compete with Chinese factories where they're polluting like crazy and paying children 6 cents an hour. And I am all for this. And all of you out there who were concerned about the trade war, you didn't listen to John, who was saying, be calm, be calm, be calm. You're concerned about the tumult in the stock market. Well, you got your wish yesterday, didn't you? Because Donald Trump said he's delaying these September tariffs until December. Let me tell you something. If we're going to beat China in a trade war or in any other type of conflict, it's going to take three things. It's going to take a brain, it's going to take a backbone, and it's going to take sacrifice. And by blinking yesterday, with the president caving to Xi Jinping in China, he has shown China that America has no backbone. We need to get back on the right page, Mr. President. Let me tell you something. Donald Trump knows better than this. And it's these people around him that panic every time that there's a stock market kerfuffle that are causing him to blink on these China tariffs. This is a huge mistake. And what message does it send to the rest of the world? What
What message does it send to Iran? What message does it send to Venezuela and Maduro? What message does it send to his own political opponents? All you have to do is stay tough and Donald Trump is going to cave? That's not the guy that I voted for. Donald Trump made a big mistake yesterday, and what does he have to show for it today? The stock market's not rebounding. It's down 600 points. Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. What has a man profited if he gains the world but loses his own soul? Well, what has a man profited if he gains a delay in tariffs and loses 600 points in the stock market? Mr. President, do not delay these tariffs. Implement the China tariffs September 1st as you promised.
I don't know if the table's going to make it, but Frankie is riled up today. I don't think that we're showing we have no backbone. It shows that he's in a negotiation, and you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe China has come to the table and said, "Hey, all right, give us 6 months, and we'll do this and that and the other thing." I love your passion; it's wonderful, but I don't think it's no backbone, Frank. That's heavy. It's, this is all
well, then let's see.
I'm saying this is a three-dimensional chess game of global economies, and we don't know every single thing. I mean, you say to people around him, but you're a big fan of Peter Navarro.
Yeah,
Peter Navarro
right.
is one of the guys that's around him.
And I guarantee you Peter Navarro didn't tell him to blink yesterday.
You didn't. And you don't think Larry Kudlow told him to blink?
Well,
because Larry Kudlow has been, him and Stephen Marr have been a big part of, his successes in the economy.
Well, I do think Larry told him to blink. And that's the problem, is there are these folks that are obsessed with free trade at all costs and a high stock market at all costs. Look, we as Americans have to be willing to do some belt tightening. Who do you think is going to last longer in a trade war? If China can't import soy and pork and beef and food, and we can't import fentanyl and cheap Chinese goods, my bet is we're going to win that one if we're willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to sacrifice.
I'm all about, and I'm a free market capitalist through and through. But when you have to right the wrongs of history, sometimes you got to do things that are outside your ideology. And China has been taking advantage of us, like you said, wages, pollution, intellectual property theft. They've been doing this to us for years. So as much as I hate the idea of tariffs because it affects free market capitalism, we're not necessarily in a free market when China's dumping product and underpaying people. So the tariffs, to me, are a way of Trump saying, hey, I'm watching, I'm listening. And the blink, I understand where you're coming from, but Frankie, I lean on you a lot for news and keep me straight, and your commentary is always on the money. But when it comes to markets, I know many times you let me weigh in there. The bigger thing that's going on in the markets, there are a lot of fears around Europe. And the European central banks are actually charging negative interest rates. So if, many of the European central banks now, if you want to put your money in the bank, they're charging you interest to keep it safe. So they're charging, usually when you put money in the bank, you get paid a little scrap of interest or something. Right now, European banks are charging, which means they're encouraging, they're basically saying, we can't make anything off this money, and if you want to leave it here to be safe with us, we're going to charge you something, that's hurting the market. And then you have a time right now where it's more difficult to borrow short-term money than long-term money, and the bond yields are all upside down, and the market in the dog days of summer, the last 2 weeks of August, markets are very thin. With the tariffs, yesterday we had good news. We were up 400. Today we're down 600. So net we're down another 200. I don't like seeing it, but there are a lot more factors out there than just this. And I would say, Stephen Moore, Larry Kudlow, and Peter Navarro should get on the same page with Trump and come up with a strategy that he could stick by and say, hey, if they do this and this, then I'll extend them. Instead of, trade policy by tweet is getting a little roiling for the markets as well.
Well, look, right now there are a whole bunch of protesters in Hong Kong that are protesting carrying American flags because they believe America is a symbol of freedom. While the president is tweeting, I would rather see the president tweet something in support of these Hong Kong protesters because they stand for freedom, and the people that are going to crush their freedom and their right to protest, those are our adversaries. They're also the same people that are economic adversaries and are really, really showing that they're not willing to blink. And, you know, I'm a Trump guy, not a Reagan guy. I'm no great fan of Ronald Reagan necessarily, but one of the things he did, which I think took a great deal of courage and a great deal of backbone, is he fired the air traffic controllers. And that was, ironically, a union that endorsed him when he ran for president. And one of the reasons he did that is because he was not going to show the Soviet unions that he was going to buckle to anybody. And you know what? It worked. They ended up having to blink. They blinked on the blinked at Reykjavik, and ultimately, the ultimate blink was when the Iron Curtain when it comes to China.
You know who, speaking of presidents, you know who has some backbone is the real El Presidente, Mr. Portnoy from Barstool. And there's some conversation about his workers unionizing. He came out on Twitter and said that, you know, anybody who wants to unionize, he's going to fire them right away. And all of a sudden, out of left field comes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about how he's in violation of labor laws and he's union busting. They have like 135 employees, and they have one of probably the most rabid social media followings out there. And at least Portnoy's got a backbone. He says, if you want to give me a problem at my company, I'm going to fire you. And I like the guy. I think we should get him on. Could we get him on?
Happy to reach out, sure.
We need El Presidente on the Barstool controversy right now.
I know model comedian Kate Armand is going to be commenting on that a little bit later on.
That's right. Jen,
certainly very interesting.
We're going to mix it up in a little bit with Jen Kearns on the right, Republican strategist, former spokesperson for the California Republican Party. And Laura Fink is going to join us via Skype. We have Kate Herman coming a little. Michelle Esquenazi is going to be here to talk to us about bail, bonds, and the whole correctional situation. She's the queen of bail bonds. And, of course, Kate's going to try to fake us out, and she's going to add her 2 cents on the AOC Barstool controversy. We will be back right after this. We will hopefully not be pounding the table as hard as Frank was, but that's the type of passionate, thoughtful, insightful information you get on Liquid Lunch. You stay right there. We'll be back in 2 minutes.